Younger brother of KC Concepcion, Nunu Concepcion, has chosen to decommit from NC State. Easy come, easy go.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our opening sponsor today is FanDuel. You can get a big return on FanDuel during this NFL season. New customers can place just a $5 bet, and they'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to get started today. Happy Monday to all, although most of you will probably be listening to this on Tuesday. We're playing a little bit of catch-up. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, we're here. It's late here on Monday evening. We're going to lead with Nunu Concepcion. That news broke on Sunday evening. 2025 wide receiver committed to NC State. He is, of course, the younger brother of KC Concepcion, has chosen to decommit from NC State, open back up his recruitment, and look elsewhere. Twitter, as expected, erupted with this news once it broke. Everybody kind of flew into panic. What does this mean for KC? What does this mean? Are they going to go as a package deal? None of those answers we have quite yet, but just on the surface level here, Kenton, Nunu Concepcion decommitting from NC State. Do you see this as a bigger deal or maybe not so much?
I mean, I only see it as a bigger deal if you fully buy into the package deal. If you 100% believe, hey, these two are a package deal and one goes with the other. And even then, I struggle to make as big of a deal of it as others have. Like, I don't understand the idea that there needs to be a large amount of doomerism and a large amount of, hey, we're so over right now. I can understand if there's this idea when you're looking at, 5 of your top 6 receivers or 4 of your top 6 from last year's team not returning. If you get to that point, that is absolutely a moment to panic. Right. If your thought is this is a harbinger of things to come, I mean, sure, I guess that's a reason to panic. But I'm not there. I'm just not there because, again, the transfer portal has gone on long enough to where these players are starting to see the grass is not always greener on the other side. How many times have we seen guys be stars in their role at school A, go to school B, and potentially get the same bag or less than they would have at school A and see a drastically reduced role? How many times have we seen it? And that's one of the better cases scenarios. You go to a school and you end up there just getting less of a role. We've seen multiple times just this year, in this calendar year, players not getting paid what they were supposed to be getting paid or things along those lines. So I'm not ready to go off the deep end and say, it's so over. We're done. We're cooked. Ladies and gentlemen, we're overcooked like a well-done $2 steak from Walmart. You know, that type of steak that's going to keep you chewing all night. We're that cooked. Exactly. A hockey puck, ladies and gentlemen. We're that cooked. I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, focusing here real quickly on Nunu Concepcion alone, I think really doesn't quite move the needle because I look at the roster regardless. We have a ton of young talent already. We have guys like Keenan Jackson. You have Jonathan Paylor, who's still looking for a lot more burn. You have Terrell Anderson. You even have guys like Tank Boston, who haven't seen the field quite yet. You have Jarrell Boulder, who's a 2025 receiver that's about to come into the program. And that's before you even touch on younger guys that are already contributing, like Noah Rogers. Wesley Grimes is a junior, but you get the point here. We have a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. So easy come, easy go, I think, for Nunu Concepcion. Of course, we wish nothing but the best for him, but absolutely. I don't see that as a massive takeaway from the program. What everyone, of course, wants to talk about is what does that mean for KC Concepcion? And there is something to be said about the body language that we saw from him early in the season. We touched on that a couple times on here. Quite frankly, it was bad. But there are several moments where it's like, how could you blame him? When you're repeatedly not getting the type of offense that you thought you'd get, not just from KC specifically, but offense as a whole, it is extremely frustrating. The whole season has been extremely frustrating. But some of the body language we saw from him early on, it started to get the people's, hamster wheels spinning like, oh man, he looks like he's already got one foot out the door. I saw a lot of people say, well, KC's promoting that his brother decommitted. Like that means he's got to go, right? I wouldn't take it that far. I think he's just excited for the prospects that his younger brother has. That's going to happen. But bigger picture here, and I tweeted this from the account. I think I've even said this on here a couple weeks ago. If KC Concepcion decides to walk, I don't think it's the end of the world for NC State. We know what we had with him last year. It was spectacular. He's a freshman All-American. He was ACC Rookie of the Year. It was awesome, and it really came out of nowhere. Coming into this season, you hope to build on that, and it hasn't. Not for lack of trying, of course, because we tried to force feed him for the majority of the season, but it just never quite worked. I don't necessarily blame KC for wanting to look elsewhere, but on the NC State side of things, I don't see this as missing out on like a 5-star recruit. Again, I want to say this respectfully. Has anyone seen KC as like entirely irreplaceable based on what we've seen so far? Or anyone else for that matter? I would say CJ Bailey and Justin Jolie are like really the only two guys that I would do absolutely anything to keep on this roster. Everyone else, they're expendable to a certain degree. So if KC decides to follow his brother or just hop in the portal regardless, it's truly not the end of the world. I absolutely promise you.
So, I want to give a shout out to the guys over at the Wolfpack, particularly Noah Fleischman, for this article that he dropped about, all of NC State's players who transferred out from last year. Okay. Now, I get it. None of them are quite on the level of a KC in terms of upside potential and talent. No. Maybe CJ Clark. I think CJ Clark, at his highest clip, I think he as a defensive tackle is the equivalent of what.
I got to be honest, though. That's the first time I've heard that name since he transferred, respectfully.
But Grayson, that was going to be my point.
Okay, sorry.
and no. But see, and this is why, this I tell people all the time, me and Grayson are secretly twins. We just got separated at birth. You see the resemblance there. But in all seriousness, all of the guys who transferred from NC State to the Power 5 level, what are we seeing? You get what I'm saying? And this is not to say that those guys are terrible players or those guys. It's simply that the grass is always greener till you get there.
Right. And
this is what I will warn every player about in terms of I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there and get a championship elsewhere. If your goal is to get the bag, I'm not mad at that. We live in America. That's the whole goal of this thing, right? We're secretly 3 corporations stacked on top of each other inside a big trench coat like little rascals. I get it. Get paid, young fella, get paid. But with that being said, if your goal is, hey, I'm going to go somewhere else and make a super impact on year one, that's a lot tougher than many people imagine it to be.
Absolutely.
It's just a factual statement. It's a lot tougher. And I get it. NC State may have some of those same problems in terms of lack of continuity with an offensive coordinator, because I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that potentially after a whatever bowl game we go to, Robert and I's probably coached his last game in Raleigh. I'm assuming.
It's fair.
Unless we go out there and do something crazy like put up 40 a game over these next few, that feels like a pretty safe assumption. So with that in mind, I understand it. I'm not saying, hey, if you transfer from NC State, you're a quitter. You're da. I'm not a Doran loyalist. I'm not one of those guys that's like, NC State is the perfect situation for everybody, and anybody who doesn't think we're the perfect situation, you're like, listen, I will say this. For the guys that are currently on this roster, there's maybe 1 or 2 that I could see saying, hey, he's got a better situation elsewhere. He really and truly does. And by better situation, I mean better all the way around, to where you're not really asking like, could I end up in a smaller role? And I know I'll win more. And I know it's a lot of unknown variables when you hop in that portal. It's a lot of unknowns. And all I would say to Doran and this staff is keep recruiting these players that are already here. Keep letting them know, hey, we love you. Your time is coming. Just be patient. Trust the process. Okay? There are certain guys. if you look over the overarching history, even in recent history of college football, a lot of guys who did a lot of great things were not the starter or the star their true freshman year, or they weren't the starter or the star in year two. They grew and bloomed into something special later on down the road. And we believe we can make you that. That's my pitch.
And then my last point on KC, and this actually relates to what we were talking about in our Friday show, rolled into NIL purposes. I don't know the dollar amount that KC received this year, but I would venture to guess it was probably the highest of any of the offensive players we have. That being said, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to try and reallocate that? Again, that's if he decides to leave, to reallocate that to offensive linemen or defensive linemen or linebackers, wherever else. I think that is far more important than one player holding the roster hostage, so to speak. So you kind of get where I'm coming from on this. If KC decides to walk, I think NC State will be perfectly fine. They can reallocate those funds, go into the portal, get what they need, or just stick to what they already have, assuming that we do retain the majority of the talent we have here, meaning that's Keenan Jackson, Terrell Anderson, Jonathan Paylor, whoever else, fill in the blank. We have a lot of talent, and we have certainly the means to replace KC if the time comes. So no need to sound the alarm if he does decide to leave. We wish nothing but the best to him. That's just the way college football is nowadays. And his younger brother may or may not be a package deal with him. That's great. Happy for him. We're going to focus on NC State here from here on out. So that's kind of what it is. I'm sure many of you probably feel the exact same way that we do. I saw very similar sentiments scattered out across social media. It is what it is. That's transfer portal, and that's NIL for you. Coming up next, we're going to get into some post-toothpaste thoughts. NC State plasters Colgate on Monday night. More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Monday sponsor is 5 Hour Energy. How ironic. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing double overtime, or just Mondays. This is why they've created Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made for super fans just like us. The fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave, your effort does not go unnoticed. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for your big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the entire season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. Middle portion of our Monday evening / Tuesday morning show. NC State men's basketball plasters the Colgate Raiders. They should just be the Colgate toothpaste by a score of 72-49 in the Lenny. Now, we warned you at the end of last week that this game might be a close one. Colgate was supposed to give us a good game. However, it was not, and that is fantastic news for all of us Wolfpack fans. NC State showed the defense early, often, and all throughout. It was a spectacular performance from NC State's defense. The offense was relatively fine, but when you force Colgate into 16 turnovers, not to mention they had a lid on the basket for most of the game, that's really all you need.
You know, Grayson, you are absolutely right. In terms of the defense, I want to give you some numbers here, okay? Colgate shot 33% from the field and 19.2% from deep. Defense absolutely carried the day. Now, with that in mind, I'm seeing something that I've never seen from Coach Keith's teams before, getting stops without turnovers. The problem with that is we still need more turnovers. I mean, you cannot win playing Coach Keith's style of basketball if you're not forcing, I want to say, somewhere in that neighborhood of 15 to 20 consistently. And don't get me wrong, they had 16 in this game, so I'm not saying they did a terrible job. I'm saying Colgate, without their top two players, you should be able to turn them over at a little bit higher of a clip than that. And moving beyond that, to the one thing that concerned me, are we bad at shooting threes? Is that who we are these days?
We talked about this the other day. It certainly seems like that is, in fact, who we are.
Them boys putting up tour dates out there. 314. What's going on? Pi Day, what are we doing? But I will say this again: winning is hard. You know what I mean? Like, as much as we take for granted and say, "Oh, we should win these games," we should be. Winning is hard, and beating a team that is traditionally pretty good in this fashion, they didn't just beat them. This was belt to behind.
Yeah.
This was, hey, son, your teacher called home, and now I had to call off work type of whooping. And so, shout out to this squad. They continue to show us who they are in ways that, Grayson and I talk about the three-point shooting, but there's also a flip side to this in that, again, 81% from the free throw line this game. They're doing things better that we have asked for ad nauseum. I've asked for, and like Grayson said, the defense is important, but we've asked for, please get stops. Please make your free throws. They did both at a very high clip.
Yeah, free throws in particular was pretty crazy to me in this one. We shot 26 free throws and hit 21 of them. That's 80%. Colgate only shot 5 free throws for the entire game. That's how good NC State's defense was on Monday evening. And it was a great performance all around. Of course, you mentioned it already, Kenton. Colgate was down 2 of their best players, one of which was hurt pretty early in the first half. I don't know how that'll fare for the rest of Colgate's season, but Colgate has been a consistent NCAA tournament team every year. They win the Patriot League just about every year. And so that was the majority of my concern coming into this game. Not to mention, again, they did go up to Syracuse and almost beat them on the road. They only lost by 2. I figured Colgate would have a much better showing than what we saw on Monday, but hey, how could you possibly complain with a B2A performance from Kevin Keats and the gang? Ben Middlebrooks had 19 points off of the bench. I love Ben Middlebrooks, especially because he was 9 for 9 at the charity stripe, getting it done. We talked a lot about him maybe taking a step up from what we saw out of him last year. So far, so good. He was playing volleyball out there a couple times. So he had a couple monster blocks deposited into the 4th row. I love what I'm seeing from Middlebrooks so far this year. His energy, as we know, is always off of the charts, but it's starting to relay into more things like more points, more boards, more blocks. He's really blossoming into a powerful big, and that'll go a long way for this squad. Also want to shout out Marcus Hill. He had 17 tonight, 6 of 10 shooting, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. Him being a primarily paint touch guard, he is so good in tight spaces once he does get into the paint. Love to see him put up a double-digit number in the point block tonight. Love what I saw altogether.
That's so interesting, Grayson. You talk about that's so interesting, Grayson. You talk about a paint touch guard. But I want to get back to the guy that you were originally talking about there, in Ben Middlebrooks. Speaking of paint touches, how many 3-point attempts did our boy Ben have this game?
None tonight. None tonight. Benjamin,
we on the same page here? You seeing what I'm seeing, Ben?
You smell what we're stepping in?
Yeah, you get what I'm saying? You get me? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you can't shoot threes again for the rest of your life, or there'll never be a time. But 4 threes is, what are we doing here? Come on, man. You are at your best when you are using Benergy to get in the paint, to crash the glass, and not to mention, hanging on the 3-point line takes away one of the things that you do better than damn near anybody in college basketball. And you want to know what that is? Crash that offensive glass. That's, if you're chilling on the perimeter, how can you ever get there? Dude, go ahead and get in that paint. Get in that paint and do some work, which he did in this game, which I'm proud of him for. And like you said, 9 from 9 from the free throw line. I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet every day and twice on Sunday.
And then last guy I want to shout out here, Dontrez Styles. He had 11 boards. I was also listening to Keats in the postgame, basically saying what we were saying a couple nights ago. It'd be really nice to get Dontrez into more space because he's a better shooter than what we've seen out of him so far.
Right.
He did shoot 1 3 tonight, and he sunk it. I wouldn't hate him taking like 10 shots with like 3 to 4 threes every game. I think he can be a good shooter for this team if afforded the opportunity. But all told, 11 rebounds. That was a great performance. Pretty complete performance from NC State tonight. This really looked like kind of a dream team from a Keats aspect as they get down the floor, they run, they played good defense tonight. They didn't turn the ball over an extensive amount. Keats has always wanted this kind of team with relative to size. And I think the only thing they're really lacking is that 3-point shooting. I guess we're going to have to continue to hold our breath to see if that improves as the season goes on. But this style of basketball where they get down the floor, they get in transition, they play good defense, that is always what Keats has wanted to do. And I think we could be looking at this team as the best example of that so far. We'll see if we're right as the season goes on. But again, schedule is going to start to get a whole lot tougher here coming up. We have William and Mary, I believe, on Friday. And then after that, we're headed out west to face Purdue and then either BYU or Ole Miss. So buckle your seatbelts. It's going to get very interesting for NC State basketball here in a hurry, but an excellent win in the Lenny on Monday evening. And coming up next, we're going to round out our show talking some NC State football. We are on a bye for the second time this past weekend. We are back in action Thursday night in Atlanta. We're an 8.5-point underdog. We'll touch more on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Second Monday sponsor is FanDuel. Tackle the NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if that first bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in just one singular place. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page that you place all of your bets. Head on over to FanDuel.com in order to join today. You'll get started with that $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com in order to get started. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And our third Monday sponsor is Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, and it makes getting tickets to all of your favorite live events easier than ever before. Game Time filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, and you won't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The curation of Game Time Picks makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it. Toggling the all-in pricing feature on the app will show your total upfront, so you receive zero surprises at checkout. And as always, you get that panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, and again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? You already know. It's game time. Last couple minutes of our Monday show. Time to get into the early details of NC State on the road at Georgia Tech on Thursday night. So our second Thursday game of the season coming so late after our second bye. Georgia Tech, of course, is coming off an exciting win, beating Miami and tainting their perfect season. NC State is kind of limping into the end of the season. We're coming out of a bye after losing at home to Duke. But NC State rolls down to Atlanta on Thursday night. We will be 8.5-point underdogs. At least that's what it is now. Kenton, how surprised are you? I'm assuming not at all.
Oh, absolutely. I would think that the line would be bigger, and then I realized Doran is amazing at coaching up teams after a bye week.
Yeah.
He is amazing at coaching up teams after a bye week. The problem is Georgia Tech is so damn physical. They run the ball so well. And so you're looking at a Georgia Tech team that runs the ball extremely well against an NC State team that will give you 25, 30 plays of good run fits.
Yeah.
But those 3 to 5 where they miss, oh boy, those 3 to 5 where they screw it up on the run fits. The secondary is like, I ain't really trying to get involved with all that, man. That's not why I'm here. I cover people and I'll move on with my life. So, this is a situation where even if you say, hey, Haynes King still can't throw and Aaron Philo is still going to be a guy you go to throw the ball or whatever the case may be, I'm not shocked by this line because Jamal Haynes has been spectacular. That offensive line has been spectacular. And defensively, they've been good enough. I'm not going to say they've been fantastic. I'm not going to say they've been great. They've been good enough to make that make sense.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They held Miami to just 23 points. So they're certainly good enough when they rise to the occasion. But yeah, to your point about Haynes King, that is going to be the biggest storyline. No surprise there.
No doubt.
We don't know We don't know the current status of his health. Of course, he just had a bye week to try and heal, but as of a week ago, he was playing Miami with essentially one arm and still got the job done. But that's because he is such a threat with his legs. So if he does play, you obviously always have to factor that in. The other name, of course, is Jamal Haynes. That guy is an absolute beast. And I don't think his numbers will completely jump off the page to you. He is sneaky fast, sneaky strong for a guy that has his type of frame. He can be a nightmare for this NC State defense. So no surprise at all here. The number one priority for NC State is going to be stop the run and have some fun. Now, every time we've said that this year, haven't quite been able to get the job done outside of a couple occasions. So that will be the number one thing to circle on your pregame notes for Thursday night. But NC State will head down to Hotlanta, 8.5-point underdogs. None of us are really surprised. We're 5-5, hoping and praying that we can at least be bowl eligible, even though would that even matter much at this point of the season? I think the answer would be no. But nonetheless, we're back playing football this week. A lot more Georgia Tech coverage will come for you on Wednesday. Of course, because we play on Thursday, we will have Kenton's Keys for you on Thursday morning. That will do it for you on Monday/Tuesday morning. Well, of course, we'll be back with you on Tuesday again. Thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. If you were in the Lenny on Monday night, let us know what you thought about the basketball win over Colgate. Let us know your thoughts about KC Concepcion, new Concepcion decommitting, and any other Concepcion that may or may not come into the picture in the next couple weeks. Let us know anything else you have on your mind. Drop that in the comment box as well. Mash that subscribe button. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Tuesday for more. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.